Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in Major League Baseball. First up, the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Reed Detmers and Christopher Sanchez, a pair of lefties on the mound. And this one, I like the Phillies in this matchup on the run line. Now, Reed Detmers' ERA now above 5 on the season. It's been a disappointing campaign for him. He's got an even steeper ERA on the road at 5.69 with a 1-6 record to go with it. The Phillies have hit lefties very well in the last month, while the Angels just have not. Christopher Sanchez is in good form. I think he pitches pretty well in this game at home. Phillies bullpen, I think, closes the deal. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line. Next up, the Chicago White Sox taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Dylan Cease and Kyle Gibson are your starters. Dylan Cease is not in good form now, an ERA above 5 on the road this season, and he's given up 12 earned runs in his last 2 starts against the Rockies and A's, 2 of the worst teams in baseball. But because he's Dylan Cease and he was one of the top vote getters in the American League Cy Young race last year, we're still getting decent prices betting against him, even with a good team like the Baltimore Orioles at a reasonable money line price here. I'm going to take the Orioles on the money line. Kyle Gibson's been pitching well. His last start was 8 innings, 3 runs against the Blue Jays, a division rival, a W in that game, 5-3 for Baltimore. He had 8 strikeouts in that ball game. He hasn't been great at Camden Yards, which would be my only concern, but this White Sox lineup has not been great against right-handed pitching at all this season, so I think Gibson's good enough here for the Orioles' bats and bullpen to really do the talking. Give me the Orioles here on the money line with a lean towards the run line as well. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Minnesota Twins. Tanner Bybee and Sonny Gray are your starters. Overall, I'd say it's been a disappointing season for the Cleveland Guardians, but Tanner Bybee, one of the bright spots of the year. He's probably going to finish in the top 5 in the Rookie of the Year vote for the American League, and he's in good form. His last 5 starts, 3 earned runs or fewer in all of those games. A lot of quality starts, good strikeout numbers, really good control from Bybee, who at the beginning of the year, in his first few outings, had some control issues, but in his last 4 starts, only 2 walks allowed against the Blue Jays twice, the Rays, some tough teams, and the Detroit Tigers as well. I think Bybee pitches pretty well. I mean, it's a tough matchup here on the road, a divisional rival. Twins have hit righties pretty well this season, but we talk about Sonny Gray, how he's not been a very profitable pitcher. I've been pretty critical about his game. He pitched well in his last start. You got to give him credit, against the Phillies, but he's been very inconsistent since the beginning of May. He's just not been a profitable pitcher. The Guardians have good numbers against him as well this season. It's a tough matchup for Gray because, the Guardians do a really good job at limiting strikeouts. So I would consider Gray a strikeout-dependent starter. If he's not missing those bats, I just don't think he's going to have a lot of success. And we've seen in 11 2/3 innings against Cleveland, a 4.63 ERA for Gray. Give me the Cleveland Guardians here at a really good price on the money line. Next up, the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the San Diego Padres. Rich Hill and Miles Mikolas are your projected starters. I'm going to lean towards St. Louis in this game. I've mentioned this is not my favorite series. 2 really disappointing teams in the National League this year. It's tough to have a lot of faith in either of them right now, but I do think Mikolas is the slightly better option on the mound. I also like the fact that the Cardinals, even though overall this season have not been great against lefties offensively, they have made improvements in the second half of the year where they've been decent, and that includes the last 30 days where they're top 15 in OPS and isolated power. Miles Mikolas has been very hard to read this season, and it's been a disappointing year for him overall. I still think he's the better option. I think he pitches good enough for the Cardinals to win the game, but like I said, staying away from this game, and I've stayed away from this series up until this point. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Chicago Cubs. Brandon Woodruff and Kyle Hendricks are your starters. The Cubs have not really done too well in Kyle Hendricks' last 5 starts, where they're 1-4 on the money line in those games, despite Chicago playing well in the second half of the season. And, you look at the matchups that Hendricks has had and teams that he's faced, you would expect some W's for Chicago. They lost to the Mets, they lost to the White Sox, and then the last start for Hendricks against the Pirates, they lost that game as well. Doesn't mean, Hendricks hasn't been pitching poorly per se, but the Cubs have just not been able to back him up. And, a lot of that's because Hendricks has been facing tough starters or tough bullpens. You're facing both here in Woodruff, who, in his last start against the San Diego Padres, 6 innings, 11 strikeouts, and 1 run given up in that 7-3 Brewers win. On the contrary, when we talk about Hendricks is 1-4 last 5 starts, the Cubs are 1-4. The Brewers are 4-1 in Woodruff's last 5 starts, and that includes wins over the Padres, the Rangers, some tough lineups against right-hand pitching. I think Woodruff pitches pretty well in this game. It's a tough matchup against Chicago. They've hit righties well, but I think the Brewers' bullpen has a big advantage in this series and in this game. Give me Milwaukee on the money line at a solid price on the road. In our next game, it's the Washington Nationals taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Bassett and Patrick Corbin are your starters. I think there's a pitching mismatch in this game. Even though Corbin's been better in the second half of the season, he hasn't been great on the road this year, and he has a very tough matchup against Toronto, who in the last month has hit lefties very well. Top 10 in baseball in team OPS, top 10 in isolated power, low strikeout rate to go with it. I think Corbin struggles. We talk all the time about Chris Bassett and his home and road splits. On the road this season, it's tough to back him in 75 and a third innings. He has a 5.02 ERA, giving up 18 home runs and a 284 points batting average. However, when he's pitching at Rogers Center, where we find him here, he's got a 3.07 ERA, a 6-3 record, and 82 innings of work with 82 strikeouts and a very low 191 opponents batting average. To me, this is a mismatch. Give me the Blue Jays on the run line. Next up, the Cincinnati Reds taking on the San Francisco Giants. Hunter Green and Logan Webb are your starters. Now, both of these starters are in great form, but I do have a lot more faith in Logan Webb right now because his last two starts where he struggled, it was against the Atlanta Braves, back-to-back starts. We know the Braves have been one of the best lineups in baseball against righties, so no real surprise there. I think Webb bounces back here, pitching at Oracle Park where he's been much better in his career, including this season, with a 2.48 ERA. Hunter Green, I have a lot more concerns with his game because his control's off. He's giving up a lot of sharp contact. His last two starts against the Blue Jays and Diamondbacks has gone 6 2/3 combined, 15 base hits, 13 earned runs, 14 total runs, and 5 home runs with 8 walks to go with it. His control's all over the place. The Reds lost both of those games 10-3 and 10-8. I got to go San Francisco in this matchup on the money line. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Boston Red Sox. Framber Valdez and Cutter Crawford are your starters. I think there's value with the Red Sox in this game. You know, Framber Valdez has not been great on the road this season. Cutter Crawford has not been good at Fenway Park. The Red Sox have not been great against lefties in the last month. The Astros have not been great against righties in the last 30 days. I think you can cancel all that out. When I look at this game, I see the Astros a little bit overvalued because Framber Valdez, he's being priced consistently as one of the best pitchers in the American League, and I think he very well could be one of the best pitchers in the AL. However, the Astros are only 4-6 in his last 10 starts. So far, 2-3 in the month of August, including the last 3 games, all losses for Houston. When you're priced as big favorites, I mean, minus 150 or more favorites at home, and then like we see here, minus 130, minus 140 favorite on the road, I just can't get behind you. If you're 4-6 in your last 10 games, you're just not making money. And I think that, the Red Sox do enough here against Framber and this Astros bullpen to make this play worth it. Getting plus money with the home team here, a competitive home team. I'm going to take the Boston Red Sox on the money line. Next up, the Oakland A's taking on the Seattle Mariners. Zach Neal and Bryce Miller are your starters. I'll lean towards Seattle in this one. Not my favorite game because the Mariners are just huge favorites. But, Bryce Miller's been good enough at home this season. The Mariners are 3-1 in his last 4 starts. He's pitched well, 5-2 record at home with a 3.53 ERA. Zach Neal has been inconsistent. His last start was good enough against the White Sox. We still give up 2 home runs in that game. Makes it 3 straight starts with at least 1 home, or 3 straight appearances, I should say, giving up at least 1 home run. I think the Mariners get to him, and the Oakland A's bullpen, which has been one of the worst in the league this season and in the last 30 days, with an ERA at 4.77 and the second worst Sierra to go with it. Give me the Mariners here on the run line, land those 1.5 runs. Next up, the New York Yankees take it on the Detroit Tigers. Garrett Cole for New York, no official starter for Detroit. It does look like Matt Manning could be the option as I see him listed on ESPN, but I think Cole is too much here for the Tigers. We saw Cole wasn't pitching too well, and we saw him give up 6 earned runs to the Red Sox, but that's a Red Sox team that's just always been able to get to him for some reason. He bounced back against another rival in the Tampa Bay Rays last start at Tropicana Field. Tough spot to be in. He went 7 2/3 innings, only 1 run with 11 strikeouts, one of his best starts of the season. I think he's good enough here against a Tigers team that was improving against righties, but we saw in the first game of this series, if they weren't able to get to Luis Severino, I don't like their chances against Garrett Cole, one of the best pitchers in the AL, and right now the favorite to win the Cy Young. Give me the Yankees here on the money line. I think they do enough offensively to back up Cole here. Next up, the Battle of Florida as the Rays take on the Marlins. Zach Eflin and Jesus Luzardo are your starters. Zach Eflin's not been great on the road this season. He's certainly been beatable, 4.37 ERA. His last start against the Yankees, the strikeout numbers were there, but yet again, another home run given up by Eflin makes it 4 straight games with a homer given up. I don't love that going into this spot. Jesus Luzardo, a nice bounce back start in his last game against San Diego. 6 innings, a shutout ball with 7 strikeouts. The Rays have done a lot better against righties and lefties in the last month, and Luzardo's been a lot better at home at Lone Depot Park than on the road this season. So give me the Miami Marlins here on the money line at Lone Depot. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Kansas City Royals. Mitch Keller and Brady Singer are your starters, but there is no official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change. I like the Royals in this matchup. Brady Singer's been really good at Kauffman Stadium this season. A sub-4 ERA, 86 innings of work, a much lower opponent's batting average as well. Mitch Keller, even though he's in really good form, has not been great away from PNC Park, where he's got that ERA just below 5 on the season. Both of these teams are hitting righties well in the last month, but I trust Singer a little bit more at Kauffman Stadium. Give me the Royals on the money line. Next up, we'll go to Citi Field as the Rangers take on the Mets. We're going to see Dane Dunning and Kodai Senga on the mound in this one. Dane Dunning not in the best form as of late. His last start against the Twins, he gave up 4 earned runs and 6 walks in only 4 innings of work, and the Rangers are now 0-3 in his last 3 starts. Overall, the Rangers have not been playing great baseball on the road this season, and mostly in the second half of the year. I don't love this spot for Dunning. I think the Mets, they've proven to be a decent lineup against righties this season. Senga's proven to be a solid pitching option at Citi Field with a sub-3 ERA, 2.64 ERA there. He's in good form. His last start, 6 2/3 innings, 10 strikeouts against the Angels. Give me the New York Mets here on the money line at Citi Field. Next up, we'll go to Coors Field as the Braves take on the Rockies. No official starter for Atlanta, but we should see Kyle Freeland going for the Rockies. Enough for me to take the Braves here and lay the 1.5 runs on the run line, maybe 2.5 runs as well to get a better price. Freeland's been better at Coors Field this season, but not by a ton. Still a 4.68 ERA. He's given up a lot of sharp contact. His strikeout numbers just haven't been there. I think the Braves, one of the toughest lineups to face right now. Even against lefties, we talk about how they hit righties. Against lefties in the last month, they're number 2 in baseball in OPS and number 4 in isolated power with a very low strikeout rate and a very steep walk rate at 12.6%. I think Freeland and this Rockies bullpen, which has an ERA above 7 in the last month, really struggle in this game. Give me the Braves on the run line. And your final game for Wednesday's card in Major League Baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Brandon Pfaadt and Lance Lynn are your projected starters for this one. I'm going to take the under in the first 5 innings in this game, and because when you look at both of these starting pitchers' ERAs, currently above 5, we're actually getting a really good number taking the under here. And Lance Lynn's been a completely different pitcher with the Dodgers than he was with the White Sox. In the month of August, which is his first 5 starts with the Dodgers, a 2.03 ERA for Lynn in 31 innings of work, keeping the ball on the ground, limiting sharp contact, and his control's been a lot better. Brandon Pfaadt's also made a lot of improvements to his game as of late. His last 3 starts, 3 earned runs or fewer given up. Good strikeout numbers, only 1 home run given up his last 4 starts combined. I think he's good enough here to keep this game under the total in the first 5, so give me the under. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bet, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.